Everyone. Few seconds. All right, folks, let's see if we've got some audio now. All right, folks, let's see if we've got some audio now. Excellent. We seem to have the audio working. Do let me know, folks, if there's any further issues with lag or with audio coming through in a weird way or sounding off, and I will do my best to fix it. However, we have had some technical issues with Twitch yesterday on our live stream, so I'm hoping they're all ironed out, but we never know. But anyway, welcome back to another Firestorm Studios live stream. My name is Pat, and today we're going to be continuing with our A to Z of Sculpting Creatures in Zbrush series, and we are on the letter P. So as you can probably tell from the little character on my screen, we're going to be working on a penguin. And the particular type of penguin we're creating today is what's known as a Gentoo penguin, just in case you want to do a little search for that. No particular reason other than I really like the look of these types of penguins. That's the only real reason that we're doing it over, say, a rockhopper or an emperor penguin, etc. That type of thing. All right. Well, folks, as always, please do reach out in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how your Friday's going. And let me know if you have any questions about ZBrush, Firestorm Studios, or the industry in general. I've been working in the industry now for almost 20 years, and in that time, I've been very fortunate to collect a lot of information, some of it good, some of it bad. So yeah, please do reach out if you have any questions, and if I can answer them, I'll do my best to. All right, let's get stuck in and take a look at how we're going to create this penguin. Now, the image I have here, we're not going to be referencing this directly. I've just put that there so that you can see the kind of creature we are making. And this is from Pixabay, and it's royalty free, so we can share it on the stream. And that's something I would recommend that you do if you are looking for royalty-free images to use on your live streams. Check out Pixabay. I use them all the time, specifically for this stream. And just as an aside, not sponsored. Okay, it is just something that I use quite frequently. All right, so on these live streams, we normally have a standard workflow that we go through. We either use Z-spheres or we use primitives. And I think today we're going to do, I'm trying to think. I was originally going to do primitives, but part of me thinks that Z-spheres, no. We're going to do primitives today. All right. So we're going to start off with a Z-sphere. Not a Z-sphere. See, this is the thing, folks. I'm so used to just going to Z-spheres. This is my go-to thing. Sorry, I misspoke. We're going to start off with a sphere 3D. Now, if you're brand new to ZBrush, something to be aware of is that when you use a primitive in ZBrush, you will have to tell ZBrush that you want to sculpt on it. You actually have to tell it has to work in a certain mode. Hi, Holly. Afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming along. I'm glad you made it. I hope the house is as peaceful as possible for you. So we're going to start off with a sphere 3D, and we're going to drag it out onto the canvas, and then I'm going to go into edit mode. And then before I can actually sculpt on this, you'll notice that if I go into polyframe mode here, that only the wireframe shows up on my model. And that's a really easy way to tell if you're going to be able to sculpt on a model inside of ZBrush. If the wireframe is on, as it is down here. We have our polyframe on, but there's no new color, okay? In that case, we need to tell ZBrush that we need to turn it from 2.5D into 3D. We do that, we go into the tool palette and hitting Make Polymesh 3D at Tom. Hey Tom, how are you doing? Thanks for coming along. Also, while I was setting up the stream, we actually got a new subscription, so a big thank you to, I believe, Julian Galvani, I think is who subscribed. So thank you very much. And just as a little note, folks, we are 1 subscription away from, 2 subscriptions away from a milestone. So please do feel if you're able to and you want to miss those ads, feel free to subscribe to Firestorm Studios here on Twitch and support us. All right. If you enjoy what it is that we do and are able to, okay? Never put yourself out of pocket, folks, okay? All right. Now that I've got this into a Polymesh 3D, I'm immediately going to do one of 2 things. I can either go down to Initialize and turn this into a Q-sphere, all right, and that's going to retopologize it, make it a bit smaller, or I can use Dynamesh. And I think we're going to use Dynamesh today. Why not? So we'll go down into Dynamesh, and I'm going to turn off blur, lower the subprojection. And for anyone curious, subprojection, if you hold down Control in ZBrush, what you'll see is that it's going to pop up a little hint and tip. And that's going to tell you what this subprojection option is going to do. So if you're using Dynamesh and you're working on something hard surface, then you want to take your subprojection and put that up to 1, and it's going to retain more of those harder edges that you've spent some time creating. Whereas if you're working on something organic, then it's not really worth having, because what it is going to do is it's going to mess up the Dynamesh a little bit, okay? Hey John, how you doing? Thanks for coming along. So what I'm now going to do with this is I'm going to take my Dynamesh resolution just at default, hit Dynamesh, and see what that is. Now for me, that's a little bit heavy to get started with. So I'm going to undo that and lower that resolution down. And that looks, do you know what? I'm going to just take it just a little bit lower, just to 48, and there we go. Now, something that I do as a personal workflow is I mirror and weld my Dynamesh, because even though the object itself is symmetrical, the topology isn't. So I always have mirror and weld up on my UI so that I can ensure that everything is symmetrical as I work through it. And you'll see me occasionally going up and pressing mirror and weld every time I recreate my Dynamesh. So off screen, I have a bunch of reference as well, just for this, this penguin. And I'm just going to get started by taking my move brush and start by blocking out the overall shape for the body. And something I would always recommend is when you're working in ZBrush or any new package or working on any project, don't rush what it is that you're doing. Okay, take your time and always refer to your reference. Keep looking at your reference. You should be looking at your reference more than you're looking at your screen or the actual object that you're creating. Okay. So what I'm doing here is we are going to go for a bit of a primitive block out. I'm just making the primary shape of the upper torso here. So you can roughly see where the rib cage might be going, just in here. Okay. Okay. But I'm not going to worry about that. We're not going to go down into the granular anatomy here. We're going to just work on the major primary form of the penguin. Okay. And penguins are quite plump. One of the reasons I like them. They've got a nice shape. And I'm going to pull out this part at the back for the tail. Now, when you're using the move brush, one thing you might find is that as you pull it out, you get quite a large fall off. We don't want that. We want a kind of a bit of a point to the tail. I'm going to turn on AccuCurve and just pull that out like so. Then I can switch that back off and we can continue readjusting this. to our heart's content. Okay, let me see here. So we've got a couple of different overall shapes here. Just round out the back a bit. And it doesn't look like much right now. I am aware of that. But don't worry, as we start to add more parts, it'll make a bit more sense. So let's go in here again, and we're going to append another sphere. And we'll just redo what we did before. And the reason I'm redoing this, folks, is just for any new users out there that might want this repeated, because I know that that can be quite helpful. Okay. So we'll get the shape of the head roughly in place. They've got great shaped heads, actually. Penguins. I mean, penguins in general just have a really interesting shape to them. So again, we're going to take our AccuCurve curve here. I'm going to make sure that I'm in symmetry mode, and I'm just going to pull the front out like so. And it's going to look really strange. This is the thing, folks. You're going to have to get comfortable. Hey, Polly, thanks for coming along. How are you doing? Get comfortable with your model looking weird at the early stages. And being okay with sharing that as well. Your models will look a bit strange to begin with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a different brush here. I'm going to go into the insert mesh brush options. So I'm going to hit B, I. Oh, try that again. There we go, I. And I'm going to pick the IMM primitives brush here. So that's T on the keyboard. And then I'm going to grab the capsule. The capsule's fine. I just need something cylindrical. I'm going to put on my poly group here so that I can see what mesh I'm working with. I'm just going to click and drag this out. I'm going to center that, move it into position, and I'm going to scale it out. And I can invert that and just move and adjust the head a little bit. And one of the things is I don't mind if things don't look like they're in the right proportion straight away. I'm okay with that. I just want to get the parts in there, and then I can play around with the proportions later on. So what's this? Hollywood, making notes. Good, happy it's Friday. How are you? I'm doing good, thanks, Polly. Bit tired, end of the week. Glad it is the weekend. But I'm doing good, thank you. I'm doing good. So again, I'm going to take the insert mesh brush, but this time I'm going to work on the body here. We're going to take a polysphere, make sure symmetry's on, and I'm going to draw out a couple of spheres. I'm going to go over to my toolbar and I'm going to turn on dynamic symmetry. That's going to allow me to reshape these spheres a little bit better, just to block out the overall shape of the legs. We're going to take our capsule again. I'm going to go into the capsule here and just drag out a couple of shapes, and I'm just going to rotate them to place, and that's just going to be the base of the feet. Yep, that looks about right. Move them forward. Let's see what else we can use here. Let's look at let's take a Q cube and go underneath, and we'll just drag that out onto the feet. I'm holding down Control, and that's allowing me to get a set size for the cubes and just scale them out. And we've got a couple of options here. I think I'm going to try I can't remember if this works symmetrically or not. We'll try the taper. Yeah, the taper works, so that's good. I can use the taper here to change the shape of the feet. Jump back over to the gizmo and just scale those down. There we go. And the last thing we need to get in there is the wings. So we've got a couple of different approaches that we could use for the wings. Do you try to take a break from 3D over the weekends? I do attempt to, but I'll not lie. I sometimes end up using the weekend to catch up on things that I wasn't able to during the week if I was live streaming or if I had meetings and things like that. Generally, I try to go outside over the weekends. I'll either go for a walk or spend time in the garden, that type of thing. I do have a busy weekend ahead, which is good. Going out with friends over the weekend and stuff, so that's going to be fun. And yeah, I generally try to, but it can be quite difficult sometimes. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go into Append and create a polysphere. And this time I'm going to go down to Initialize and turn it into a Q-sphere. We'll move this out, scale it up. And I'm going to use this to model out the wing. We're going to start by scaling it down in Z, and then turn on polyframe, go into the Z modeler, take the edge loop here in the middle, and we're going to bevel that, like so. That's going to allow me to take this side here, grab it like so, and just move it out. We can scale it down. All I'm going to do is rotate that round like so, invert it, and what I will tend to do with something like this is I can just flatten it down. If I get the settings right, there we go, flatten that down and just pull it out. There we go. Grab the Z modeler brush again, and this time we're going to insert a couple of edge loops. There we go. Now we can go in and start shaping the wing. See here, so that's going to be a little bit flatter. There we go. And there's so many different ways. I could have shaped the wing with Dynamesh, but I decided just to show you a different technique in case you were curious, and also in case there's any new users out there to ZBrush. Okay. And I think there might be a few, either people who are new to it or are coming back after a long hiatus. Couple more edge loops, move over to the Move Topological brush, and just continue to reshape. And I think what I'm going to do here with the wing is I can scale it down, and most of the time we get something like this with the penguin. And I think I'm just trying to decide how I want to position the wing for ease of sculpting. And we can always pose it later on. I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of put it out in almost like an A pose, which is quite good because that's quite a natural position for the wing. Let's just make sure that's roughly in the right place. There we go. And we maybe need to bring this forward ever so slightly and just rotate it. There we go. Kind of looks like an airplane. Although, I mean, there is this well-known thing that, you know, penguins are sometimes called torpedoes. They're likened to torpedoes because of the way that they go through the water. And also that it looks as though they're flying underwater because of the way that they can maneuver themselves. It's quite amazing. And it's like, this is something I've always said before, folks. When you're creating something, if you've never created a creature or a character or something, don't just look for still reference, look for video reference as well. It will be really helpful in getting to know the anatomy of the creature, and just help, I find anyway, with that type of thing. So we're going to take this wing and we're going to go to Z plugin, Subtool Master, Mirror. We'll merge it into one subtool. And we're just going to take a look now. I'm going to set that to mirror and make a little change to the scale. Go. And again, it looks really weird at the moment, folks, but we're getting there. Don't worry. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take I think what I'd like to do though, before we go any further, is I'm going to take the feet off. So we're going to go into here. Oh, what's that? What do we have here? What have I created by accident? Okay, part of the head has a little cylinder, so we're going to delete that because that'll come back and bite me. We're going to take the feet here, mask them out, and then invert that mask and split unmasked points. So now the feet are separate. I want to connect the head and the body and the arms, to be fair. I mean, I'll leave the arms or the wings off for the time being, but let's just work on the torso section, okay? And we're going to do that by taking our head here, going to merge down and hitting OK. I'm going to bring it into one mesh, and now we can dynamesh it together. But before we do that, we're going to do a bit of housekeeping. We'll rename this body. And again, folks, apologies when I look off to the side. I'm just accessing my keyboard because it sits underneath my drawing tablet. It's a bit ergonomically challenging sometimes. So we'll do wings, and then we'll do feet. Then we're going to append in a cube, and we're going to scale that down. And what I'll do in this instance is sometimes when I'm creating a file name cube or subtool, I sometimes try to just integrate that into a little stand or base for the character. So, and this can be really useful when you're modeling a character in this pose. It allows you to get the feet flat on the ground and gives you a base at the same time to save your file as, okay? And just to make my life a bit easier here for cleaning, I'm just going to go through and delete some of these edge loops because I don't need them. There we go. Perfect. And I'll just save this now. This is the first save file. I'll just call that penguin1. There we go. Excellent. I thought I've spelled it wrong. Let's try that again, shall we? It's quite funny because when I think about penguins now, or I see penguins on TV or online, I always remember this this interview that Benedict Cumberbatch gave, where he did a narration for a wildlife documentary about penguins. And I think somebody, I don't know if somebody told it to him as a joke or as a prank, but they told him the way to pronounce penguin is in a really funny way, like penguin or something like that. And he just continued to pronounce it that way throughout the show, and he got royally mocked for it, which I always thought was a bit of a shame. Funny, but a little bit of a shame at the same time. So now that we have our penguin, let's dynamesh this together. So we'll go to geometry, dynamesh. All my settings are at the same. Hit dynamesh once, and we get something like this. Next, to keep everything a bit cleaner, we'll go into deformation, and we'll just use polish by feature, maybe a little bit of polish as well, and you can start to see that penguin shape coming together. Now, as a reminder, folks, penguins, yes, penguins. As a reminder, folks, the way that the A to Z series works is that we pick a a creature from the alphabet, the letter that we're on, and I come at these cold. The only thing I'm allowed to do prior to the stream is find reference. But the first time I'm creating the creature, the idea that I'm coming up with how I want to pose it, and the shapes that I'm creating, everything is done cold. There's no prior kind of work put into these, and that is done by design. Okay, that is so that you can witness what it's like when things go well and witness when it goes wrong. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is use the smooth brush to start shaping out this penguin a little bit better. And I'm just going to bring up one of my side profiles. I did manage to find a side profile of these penguins. Something quite I do love penguins. I think they're fun animals to watch, and to this day I've never made one. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to. I know that we did a vote on the Discord, and pangolin was the option, or was actually won. But I wanted to make this penguin, and I also wanted to do a creature that I felt we could do in one sitting, rather than a couple of them. And I felt that the pangolin would have probably taken more than one session to do. But we will do a pangolin one day. I promise. Because pangolins are awesome as well. Pangolins are very cool. So I'm immediately going to start just... Pangolins are the greatest. It's Godzilla meets Iron Man. Exactly. It's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. So we're just now going to start blocking. I mean, this is the great thing. There's not a lot. There's form. There's more form than you realize on a penguin, even though most of it's quite blubbery, and most of it's in the lower extremities. The upper body is quite shapeless and just literally a torpedo shape, but that's by design. I mean, they have to be this shape. Let's see if I'm getting the legs right. Okay, so I've screwed up the proportions on the lower end for where the legs are going to come out. So we're going to fix that now. I'm going to make these a bit smaller. Let's get another couple of reference images in here. Okay, I think you, my friend, are going to be the primary reference. And that's another thing as well, just to point out. Pick one image from your reference folder that you always refer back to. Okay, that is your primary reference, and it will save you so much pain and misery going around a model and fixing things and adjusting things based on thousands of pieces of reference. Okay, I'm not saying you know, don't get lots of reference, but try and keep the reference consistent so that you're not constantly changing things on the model. Okay, will make your life easier. Let's just... Right, where's my front view? Oh, there we go. I don't know how anyone can't like penguins, if I'm being honest. You know, they're just the most hilarious looking creatures. I'm going to take the damn standard here, but what I'll do is I'm going to turn on Sculptress Pro so that I can block out the beak, the separation of the beak. And this is something I want to get right. So there we go, there's a good one. That's a good reference. Even before I get the shape of the beak right, I want to try and figure out how I'm going to separate it. Because as I've said to you many times, one of the things I do when I'm figuring out a creature like this from scratch is, and anything really, is I will use certain markers as a guide of where to place the next part. So if I turn off Sculptris Pro now, and I go to inflate, I now know, because of how far I've brought the beak back, I now know that where the length of the beak ends and the curve of the head starts should be at a rough diagonal. So it sits about there. So let me turn on Sculptris Pro again. That sits about that angle, which means I now know which point to start pulling down the beak, like that. And then reshaping. And if I need to reshape that, I'll just jump into my masked lasso and mask that out. And the aim here, folks, again, remember, we're not going for fully finished creatures here. We're going for what I would consider a first pass. If I was working in a studio and somebody came to me and said, Pat, I need you to make a penguin, I'd be like, cool, that's awesome. I want to make a penguin. And then I would give them a first pass model. And the reason I do that, and again, the reason that I tend not to go into like full detail or anything like that, is that you don't want to be overly precious about these things. Because no matter how good you think your model is, that doesn't really matter, because your supervisor or the client or somebody in marketing will go, hey, no, I don't like it, change it. And you have to do it. You've got to change it. So there we go. Now I'm going to invert that, and I'm going to start working on building up some of those primary forms underneath, like so. Now that's going to add volume, but that's fine. We go back with the move brush and we go in and we start to reshape. And it's going to look a bit messy. As I said before, as I said at the beginning, get used to disliking your model, because it's going to stay this way for a while, depending on how you work. I am quite sketchy when I work. I know lots of people that go in and they want to be super clean straight away. It's just not how I work. I like to discover the model. I know it sounds a bit arty-farty, but I do. I like to kind of discover the model as I'm sculpting it. And I also now know that the eye goes about here. There we go. Let's jump back over. Yeah, their eyes are quite low. So I'm going to jump over in some of the imagery anyway. Just going to double check against a few others. Yeah, eyes are going to be about here. And then we just change the shape of the head. And the length of the beak. So the length of the beak I've got here is too long, so we're just going to go in and we're going to make that a little bit smaller. Make sure we have symmetry on and just start blocking out the back. Let me just see another problem with doing something like a penguin. It's quite hard getting their form spot on, because just how shapeless some of them can be. But I'm going to now add the wings in. So to do that, I'm actually going to subdivide them once. There we go. And then just delete that subdivision. And then we'll just merge them down. We'll merge down, hit OK. And then we'll you know what? Instead of redynameshing, no, let's redynamesh, because we've got some Sculptris Pro that we need to fix. So we're going to go into Geometry, Dynamesh. I'm going to choose the picker, and I'm going to pick the highest density. Then I'm going to half it. and then Dynamesh. There we go. That's too much. So let's lower that again. Dynamesh. Perfect. More than enough. In fact, wait, actually still too much. Let's see. That's better. Okay. It's going to give me a little bit more to play with. We can smooth back some of this stuff here that I don't need quite yet. And to save time smoothing things out, I'll do a polish. I might still be a little bit too high on the Dynamesh. We'll find out shortly. It starts to get too lumpy and difficult to work with, then you know you've went too high with your Dynamesh. Okay, so I made a mistake here. This object's quite thin, and ideally we don't want to be pulling our the mesh through when I'm working on the back here. So to alleviate that, we can turn on back face mask. Now I have it in my custom UI, but if you need to find it in the standard ZBrush UI, go to Brush, down to auto masking, and then choose back face mask. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop ZBrush from pushing through and sculpting the exterior part of a model if you're working on something thin. Okay. Let's take out our trim dynamic and start just shaving off some of the shape around here. Just planing down some of the forms. How are we doing for time? Okay, folks. Oh, we're actually, I'm taking a bit longer than I hoped. I'm obviously a bit more tired today than I expected to be. So let's kind of get ahead a little bit here with this. So let's start blocking this out a bit more. And I need to find an image to see if I can get a better image of the back for the tail. Okay, that one will do. That one will do. So I want something that looks like that. Yeah, that looks right. Now, obviously, that's really, really symmetrical, but that's okay. And we're just going to now go in and start, I'm going to hide the feet and start working on the legs a bit better. I'm going to mask that out and just pull it down. There we go. Take our dam standard, hide the base. And we're going to have a little bit of a center part down the middle as well. One of my favorite things as well about the anatomy of penguins is the fact that they've got really long necks. They just don't look like it. They do. The neck is really deep into the you know, into the head a bit. So their neck looks really short, but in reality it goes down to actually here. So if I take the damn standard here, obviously around about here, and then the skull base is about there, and the neck is like this long, even though the neck looks quite short. And next week, folks, we'll be moving on to the letter Q, and we're doing Quetzalcoatlus. So we're doing our first dinosaur. That one might be a double session. That one might be a Monday and a Friday session, I think. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the subscription. That would be, I'm going to quickly, my thing is in the way. I missed the name. Apologies. Sergio Gordiel. Thank you very much for the subscription. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Okay. Got a much better image as well. I've just found a much better image for the eye. So I'll be coming back to that in a second. Just going to clean up the wings here. Make sure I've got back face mask on. Using trim dynamic, give myself a bit of an edge along the wing. Back and forth. And I also now need to add just a little bit more in here, just a bit more variation in the form of how the feathers are flowing across the creature. Add a bit more to the wings. And I don't want to go too far with the wing, because actually what I might want to do here, maybe wait until we do a quick Z-remesh to give us some better shape, but there we go. Let's do something like that. That looks about right. Just smooth that out. There we go. And I am one of those, I'm kind of one of those artists that prefers to keep everything as low as possible when I'm sculpting. No need to use any more resolution than is necessary. And that should go up to the legs like that. So what you'll see me do as well a lot is I add quite a lot of form and then I take it away again. Okay, and it's just to kind of create that subtlety. I'm going to take a really light Z intensity with my inflate and just plump up the body a bit. Try trim dynamic again over the wings, like so. And keep moving around your model. Cannot stress that enough. Keep moving around. Keep seeing where you've made a mistake, because you'll have made lots of them. I can see hundreds of mistakes on this. I see hundreds of mistakes on the models I finish. The simple fact is, a model will never be perfect. You can get it close, but it won't ever be perfect. Not for artists. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do here with the tail, let's just add a bit more oomph on the back. There we go. And I'm now going to start creating more variation in the flow of how I feel or how it looks to me like the feathers are flowing on the body, and then just smoothing it back. Because penguins are very, very streamlined. Their fur is not the same as other types of birds. So I've got to be careful I don't like make large feathers on it. Okay. Let's see. So it's looking a bit lumpy on the back. So what we'll do is we're going to do a quick Z-ream. Actually, let's clear up this bit here under the chin. Get that shape in there. Before we make any changes to the rest of the character. Right, okay, let's take a look at that head shape. This needs to be lower and a little bit further forward, so it's a bit longer. There we go. I'm just going to do a quick Z-remesh before, and then do a quick Z-remesh and a projection. And that's just going to allow us to deal with some of the lumpiness that we've got. So we'll do a duplicate, go into Z-remesher, make sure that's turned on. We'll go into our brush menu and we'll choose Z-remesher guide, symmetry on. We're just going to pop in a few guides when it decides it wants to work. It can sometimes be a bit picky about getting an edge loop. There we go. They don't need to be perfect, but you want to make sure that ZBrush has a better idea how you want the edge looping to run. I use polygroups for this. For your Z-remesh, okay, yeah. That's another option as well, yeah. So once we've got that in place, I'm just going to pop one down the middle. There we go. And I'm going to do Z-remesh. As it says, doesn't need to be perfect. That's looking okay. It's a little bit messy here, so what we'll do is we'll undo it. And actually, you know what? We'll do another Z-remesh. And then I'm going to turn on same and hit Z-remesh again. And what this will do is it's going to clean up any areas that weren't quite as tidy as I would have liked. And then if I still don't like the amount of topology I've got, I'll turn on half and hit Z-remesh one more time. That's good. Now I can go back to my heavy one and move the body above it. If you need to, just do a quick name so you know what you're dealing with here. And I have 6,000 polys for the low res, and I've got Dynamesh at about 50,000. So let's subdivide a couple of times and then just do a quick project. So in here, we're going to change the settings from the mean to 12, turn off color, put the PA blur down to 0. This is going to give you a cleaner and quicker projection and less chance of crashing when you're dealing with really high polygon counts. Because what ZBrush tends to do is it does a bit of a subdivision in the background and a smoothness in the background in order to clean up the projection. So at very most, I would maybe put 1 or 2 on for that. All right. So we'll hit project all. And we're not going to see huge difference, to be honest, but we'll have enough to work with. But the great thing about this is now I can take my smooth brush, lower the intensity, and if I go into the brush curve, we can reset that, bring it down, and we can just start smoothing this out. Hey Manic, how are you doing? Thanks for coming along. So now I'll just go through and lightly smooth manually rather than using something like polish. There we go. And I can step down the subdivisions now. And I can clean up and add any extra form that I want. Go. First day this week, I ended work relatively early. Oh, that's something at least, and it's on a Friday no less, so that's what you want, right? Been a grueling week. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad it's over for you then. It's been that bad a week. Okay. You know what? That's going to do. I don't want to go too much further with this. So I'm going to take the old body, put it down, turn on the feet and everything else. And now let's actually do something with these feet. So I think what I'll do here, make my life a bit easier, turn off symmetry. We'll delete one. And then I'm going to continue the primitive block out with this and just make the foot. So I'm going to move that there. And then we're going to go back into the insert mesh brush. And we're going to add in a few primitives because looking at their feet, they're quite interesting little feet on penguins. They're really cool, actually. So I'm going to pop in a cylinder like so. Just scale it out. Bring it down. And we'll just do something like this. Then we'll hold Control, click and drag to create an opposite one. And then I will do the same again. Do a quick auto groups. Mask out the middle one. Center my pivot and just Control, click and drag. And I like doing these separately like that. Sometimes just to help with the realism, really, more than anything. It just makes it look better. So we've got a bit of a, got a bit of a webbing, obviously, in between the toes. So let's add that in now. Oops. Come on, Zbrush. Do as you're told. There we go. So as always, folks, if we have to go over the 2-hour mark, we will. I'm not bothered if we go over a little bit just to make sure that we get this finished. Or finished to a certain degree. As we know, we don't really finish these to any fantastic degree. That's not the point. The kind of point is to have fun with it, folks. That's the thing. See, if you're not enjoying sculpting something, then just stop. And if you think, oh, I want to be a character artist or a sculptor or something, and you start doing it and you just don't enjoy it, then find something else, because it's not for you. Okay, it's like me. Can I do character rigging? Yes, I can. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I don't enjoy doing it, so it's not something I've really ever pursued. And it doesn't matter, by the way, as well. It doesn't matter what it is you want to learn. Anything that you're willing to invest time into, you can learn and you can do. So they've got this little extra wee dew claw on them, wee side claw thing, which I'm going to add in now. So back to the insert mesh brush. What's this? Hopefully next week back to a lot tamer and a better routine. Well, I hope so as well, Manic. I hope so. You know what? I'm actually going to shape this a little bit, because it's looking a little bit too cylindrical. There we go. Start getting this in Smooth this back. There we go. Start making it look a bit more like a foot. Messy, messy, messy. Maybe pull this out a little bit more as well. Try and get that scale right. I also apologize, folks, if you can hear car horns in the background. I live next to a, well, I live on a very busy street, unfortunately. Lots of people park their cars. There's a couple of local businesses, and people pick up others from work, and lots of noise in the background. So apologies if it's coming through on the mic. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to Dynamesh all this together. Oh no, wait, sorry, I've forgotten about the actual little dew claw thing. Where is my insert mesh brush gone? There it is. Okay, we'll pop that on the side here. Scale it up a bit and just pop that. We can just hear your voice. Brilliant, thanks, John. Good to know. I mean, the voice isolation on the mic I'm using is pretty good, so that's good to hear. Oops, completely screwed that up. There we go. That'll do. I can reshape that. And that's one thing as well to remember, folks. When you're starting to block things out and you're working on models, you will eventually get to a point where you don't need things to be really perfect at a blockout stage, like primitives, because you know you're going to be able to resculpt and reshape it as you go through the rest of the model. Okay. So obviously, you know, when you're starting out, it makes a lot of sense. If you can block something out in primitives, it's actually a really important thing to learn, because it trains your eye to look for those simplistic primary forms. And if you can build all of those up, and then you do something like a Dynamesh, you'll be 50, 60, maybe even 70% of the way there with the overall shape of a character or a creature. Okay. I'm just going to keep adjusting this until I get a Dynamesh I'm happy with. That looks pretty good to me. I can work with that. I can work with that. Grab the move brush, change the shape of the foot a little bit more. There's a big wrinkle here, because the foot appears to be quite flat until you get to the leg, and there's a bit of a wrinkle here. Then that comes round to the little dew claw part. And we need to do a little bit of extra work with the middle toe. Bring that forward. And yeah, that's looking okay. What's kind of awesome about this, actually, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, is the bit I'm doing at the moment is actually just the flipper part. Okay, we've got obviously individual digits for the feet, but the way that the penguin foot is constructed kind of cool because the claw doesn't come out of this bit at the end here. Actually, a bit above it, there's another flap of skin. So it means that the skin underneath is webbed and obviously a larger surface area to give them some boost as they go through the ocean. And that's really cool. It's one of the reasons I love creatures is you get to learn and find out about all these cool things that they can do. I'm just now going to quickly move this into position. About there. That's looking good. It's looking okay. They're quite flat-footed as well, so we'll just that into position. There we go. Like I said, this is just the lower part. And then I'm going to come back and add something else for the claws. Subdivide one more time. Play around with the forms just that little bit more. Around the feet. Now, as I said, I'm just putting enough in just to indicate a little bit of shape there. And actually, I could just, oh no, I can't use that brush because for some reason, Zbrush is just like, nope, you've got it in your, you have it in your menu, but I'm not going to let you use it. Zbrush does that sometimes when you're setting up a custom set. And I recently upgraded to a new version of Zbrush, or actually I rolled back to a previous one that I was using, and I've had to set up all my UI, my brushes and stuff. Now the UI I had saved, and I only used one hotkey adjustment, which is the solo key, which I map to the letter S on the keyboard. But by default, that's actually the draw size, strangely enough. You can hold down the S key and change your brush size. But I always use, you'll see me pop up this menu here. This is the right mouse button menu, and it allows me access to all sorts of things, okay? And that's just how I prefer to work in ZBrush. But to each your own, you know. I know lots of people that like to have a fully customized UI. People prefer to work with the standard ZBrush UI. It's entirely up to yourself. The reason that it's really strange. If I'm using a drawing tablet, I will revert back to the default ZBrush UI. But when I am using a Cintiq, I prefer to use this kind of L-shaped UI where everything is within easy reach of my right hand, so that I'm not having to really draw my hand across the screen that often. And I just find that more comfortable to work with. Okay. So let's just take the pinch brush, run it along the foot here a bit. And now let's get the bits in that we need. So we're going to append, we're actually going to append something here. I'm going to delete the lower. I'm going to append in a, what do I want to do here? Think. Oh, wait a minute. I could use the insert mesh brush. Not thinking. There we go. We'll do a capsule again. And this time I'm just going to put it halfway into the foot. Bring it forward. In fact, you know what? Let's do it on the middle foot. That would make way more sense than doing it at an angle first. We're going to bring it back a little bit like so. Hide the body. Mask it out and just pull it back. Hold on, folks. Let me just do a quick auto group so this is a bit easier to work with. There we go. I'm going to pull that back and just lower it into the foot a bit. And do the same with the front. and it's going to come back a little bit more from the edge. And then we need to do a claw. So to do the claw, I'm going to append Sphere 3D, turn it into a Q sphere. There we go. And subdivide it once, mask off the front, pull it out, pull it down, and then just smooth all of this out a bit. Going really quick with this one. There we go. And I'm going to mask out the underside here. Just move that in. Mask it out again. And now I can start manually pushing this in to get the underside of the claw. What's this? I use the S key way too much for brush size. I'm at the moment trying to go as minimal as possible with the visible elements of the UI. I've made custom menus with 1, 2, 3 hotkeys so I can get the tools I need right where my pen is. Yep, that's another option as well. A lot of people like to use the make your own menu. That's an interesting thing, chat. Let us know what kind of, if you are a ZBrush user, what do you prefer using? Are you let's use all the menus type person? Are you make custom menus? Do you like using hotkeys? Because again, if you hit tab, you can go into what ZBrush refers to as pro mode, where you have no UI. And this would be where you would use custom hotkeys or custom menus to get all the tools you need. It's always interesting knowing how other people work, and that's one of ZBrush's biggest strengths, is the fact that you do have this level of customization. So let's scale this down. And I'm just going to do one basically at this point, and then I'll just duplicate the whole section out again. There we go. Oops, turn off symmetry. Sorry, folks. See, this is the reason that I sometimes like using a drawing tablet instead of a Cintiq, because I still haven't found, for me anyway, I have never found a way of sitting with a keyboard with a Cintiq that I find comfortable. Which isn't great, really, because ergonomically, I mean, funnily enough, when I have a standing desk, and when I stand up, I find it more comfortable to work with the keyboard and things like that, because I can stand back and things, but it can be quite troublesome. So I'm going to actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to take this and I'm going to separate it. And then we're just going to inflate the end of it, because now this is going to allow me to smooth it. I think so. Excellent. All right, let's start. Let me see. Yeah, that looks okay. We need to do a little bit of sculpting on the demand 9831. How are we doing? Thank you very much for coming along. I hope you're having a good Friday. I hope everyone's having a good Friday. It is Friday after all. We want people to have a good time. I just to point out to everyone, I don't believe Peter will be streaming this evening. He was planned to. I don't think he is anymore. So we will be our streams will continue on Monday again, and look out on Monday for an update as to who is streaming and when. I will be streaming on Monday again. I'll be streaming Mondays and Fridays at the same time, 2 o'clock. until the end of June. And after that, I don't know. I don't know what my times will be. But so if you're interested in catching this series, then that's when you know. Now you know when we will be streaming for the rest of June. Just gonna keep making, the feet are quite detailed, so I want to make sure I get them looking fairly okay. So now that I've got these two sections here, I'm going to first temporarily merge them down together so that I can duplicate them. So we'll just hold Control and, oh, we've got multiple subdivisions, so let's get rid of those first. We'll just Control, click, drag, and adjust. Isn't Andre streaming tomorrow morning? Oh my God, so he is. My apologies, Andre. Yes, Andre is streaming at, I believe, let me just check for everybody. He is streaming at 6 a.m. Yes, 6 a.m. UTC. So UTC time. If you're in the UK, that means 7 o'clock in the morning. But yes, you are right, Manic. My apologies. I forgot about that. So yeah, Andre is going to be streaming. We just have, it's because we have very few people actually streaming on weekends. I always forget. There we go. Right, so I think I'm going to do that with this and make a small adjustment to the rest of the foot. That just looks a bit better to me. Okay, let's go back to the main foot and just adjust that ever so slightly. If I ever stream, it would be on the weekends too, properly. Yeah, I get it. You know, not everyone has time through the week. I mean, that's the thing, folks. I mean, I may, you know, my streams could stop suddenly. It all depends on work. It all depends on work. But at least for the rest of June, I don't see that being an issue. All right. Let's do a quick auto group again. Merge and take the claws off. Unmasked, then merge the foot and that down. And then we'll dynamesh them together. So we'll do a picker, grab that, dynamesh, foots together, and then we can just gently smooth everything back. There we go. Now we have our penguin's feet. They're not perfect, but they're feet. And I'm just going to take this bit here is bothering me quite a lot, so I need to fix it before we move on to the rest. And the foot that they have here, this little, this little like dew claw type thing. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but it's what I would refer to on a mammal. All I'm going to do here is just, there we go, reshape that a bit better. There we go. And I'll just take one of these. There we go. Bring everything back. Just scale that right down. and then struggle to get it into the right position. There we go. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do with the foot here is I'm going to subdivide it once just to give it a bit extra smooth. And then in here, we'll do a quick polish. And then we're going to go to the claws, and I'm going to give them a subdivision of 2 as well. And remember that one of the cool things about ZBrush when you're merging objects down, if you give them both the same level of subdivision, right, even though this is a Dynamesh, right, they've both got 2 levels of subdivision on them, which means that if I merge them down at their highest, like so, like that, I'll be able to retain that subdivision history, okay? Then what I'm going to do here is, I don't think it'll work, but I will duplicate. I'm going to mirror this across, merge, append as a new subtool, and there we go. All right, so we have a body, we have some feet. Now let's focus on the head. We're going to save again because I'm so bad for saving. Let me know, chat. You guys forget to save all the time? Because I know I do. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're 1 hour and 20 in, folks. So we're not doing too bad. But let's do a little bit of a color code here just to keep my brain from going mad. So we'll take the feet and we'll just do a quick RGB, RGB1, fill object, do that for both feet. Then let's go into the auto groups for the toes, and the claws, and we'll change that to black. Maybe just an off gray, fill the object. There we go. Same with this one. Come on, what's going on? Auto groups, there we go. What's going on? Have I doubled up? I have doubled up. My apologies. I do this sometimes. It's a bit of a mistake. There we go. So I'm going to have to do that. Fill object. And we're going to have to go in here and get rid of this lone little... Okay, invert, delete, hidden. There we go. All right, fixed. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to leave that white. I'm going to delete this old body. And I'm going to save again. Save next. Which I should know, and in the weekdays too. Mirror and weld. Good old handy tool. Mirror and weld is great. Mirror and weld is great. Very useful tool. Okay, I think yeah, let's take a look at the head now. So what I'm going to do here, just to make my life a bit easier, is I'm going to make a bit of a poly. I'm going to make a couple of poly groups. So I'm going to switch to the select lasso, do auto groups, and then I'm going to do that for the head as well. About there should be fine. And then just do auto group on that. There we go. We'll take the wings, and then we'll do the body, and then we've got the head. So let's just pull up the reference here for the head. Okay. Symmetry on, symmetry is on. Okay, so I think one of the main areas that I've made a mistake here on is the shape of the head from the front. So it's a bit too thick at the moment. It's not tapering in the right way. So we need to go back in and start pulling this in a little bit more around here. Sorry, folks, just trying to find some good reference here. Good angle of the head that I need. There we go. Pretty good. So yeah, so I was right. We've got too much tapering going on. We know that we've got something that comes in around about here for the beak. And then we have our fur that comes down about here, goes into there. So there we go. So that's going to come to a point. It's going to go under, like so. And I don't know yet if I want to, I haven't decided if I actually want to open the beak or not yet. I can't actually, I'm not going to lie to you, I can't actually make a decision yet. I haven't had on what I want to do there. So let's just, probably going to need more subdivisions. Yep, there we go. Just to kind of start sketching this in more accurately. And then we'll just take that damn standard now and take that to about there. That's going to give us the proper shape of the beak. This is going to come back out here, and we're going to flatten that out a bit. All right, folks, I'm going to be a bit quieter here because I'm just trying to focus on this bit and get this bit right. But if you do have any questions or anything, by all means, fire it into the chat and I'll answer them when I can. Okay, so that goes across here and that's going to come. Ah, okay, I see what's going on now. I see how this is working. Okay. So we actually have a bit of an adjustment to make now to the face because of how the beak appears to be attached. Because the beak is in a couple of sections. We've got the orange parts, and then we have the, what I'm guessing is the sharper part, which is a darker, a black color. It looks a bit something like that. And then the eye is around about here and sits at an angle. Then they have their marking that goes like this across the head. And then we've got a little bit of tuft coming under here. Okay. Now we've got something that we can work with. Let's start creating the form here for the head, where the eye socket is going to go. And then bring that back. There we go. That's starting to now look similar to the reference I've got. Pat, have you ever come across a setting that reduces the distance of sculpting when two subtools are overlapping each other? For example, tooth of a dragon and its lip. Come across a setting that reduces the distance of sculpting. That should only be an issue if the two subtools are merged, if they're affecting one another. Either way, the distance for the sculpting shouldn't actually make a difference. However, if you go into the brush menu and go under modifiers, where is it? Modifiers? Where is it? Oh, wait a minute. You could, of course, attempt to try the, see if the depth changes, if that works for you, the embed option. And where is it? There's another. Okay, I cannot remember where it is. There's another option that does allow for an adjustment in depth on the brush. I'll have to have a look out for it for you, Manic, and I'll get back to you with that one because I'll have to look for it again. It's not something I use myself commonly, if that's any help. But I would need to see exactly what it is that you're, like sculpting around the tooth. It would sculpt very far away from the subtool, and transparency makes it hard to see how it looks without it. Sculpting around the tooth. I think I know what you mean, Manic. But tell you what, let's see if we can jump on a call, maybe later on today, and you can kind of show me what it is that you're trying to do, and we can try and fix it. How does that sound? I don't think it'll take long. A couple of 5 little minutes to see if we can fix that. Yeah, I'm not liking where the eye is. That's not in the right place. This is... We're almost there with this. We're getting there, folks. You can start to see it coming through. But these beaks and these eye positions are tricky. These are tricky. So let's get an eyeball in there. Append sphere. And I know, folks, that there's an append eye option. And if you didn't know about the append eye option, this is probably the perfect time to show you. So if you do have a character and you need an eye, if you go up to macro, append eyes, you're in the VC chat. All right, okay, no worries, Manic, great. You can append an eye and just pop it up into where you need it. And if you turn off symmetry, you won't stretch the eyeball into an unrecognizable shape. So I'll pop this into here. This is probably going to help me a little bit better. And we can sculpt around it. So now that that's in place, go back to the head, turn on the eye, and let's start. There we go, bring the eye in, that's better. Okay. Right, I am going to help myself out a little bit here to mark things faster. I'm going to fill the character with grey. Then I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to paint in roughly where the markings need to go on the character. And this is something I tend to do a lot if I'm having trouble placing things. And a lot of it's down to speed as well, because we're trying to do this quite quickly, folks, as well, you know, so there is a bit of an issue there. So now if I just poly paint in, how are we doing for time? Okay, yeah, probably going to have to go over to get this one finished, I think. Do something like that. And then we've got the inside of the wings too, so let's do that. There we go. And they've also got something around their eye. And this is also just to help me visualize, you know, I love, one of the reasons I like Gentoo penguins is they remind me of Venom from the Spider-Man comics. I just love the way that the white wraps around the eye area and then around the back, and it's all a little bit speckled and such. So around the eye, always found that quite fun about them. There we go. And it just kind of reassures my own brain that I am going in the right direction with it. So let's, well done, that was a mistake. Let's get that there, and let's do V to switch it, and just paint in that there. There we go. Okay. Mirror across the eye as well. Merge into one subtool. Yeah, it's getting there. We're kind of there. Okay. Now we can switch back over to actually sculpting. So let's add a bit more shape under the chin here. And to the back of the neck. And then it's really this eye area that's the big, and the mouth area here, which is causing the most problems. So we'll move this, start shaping the eye now. And I think what I might have to do, I might just have to do another Dynamesh, so that I can get the eye shape I need and give myself the geometry that I need to accurately create the shape I want. Okay. The beak looks like they have lipstick on. Oh, I see. How are you doing, Shappy? How are you doing? So there we go. Now if I start to refine some of the form using my trim dynamic brush, I can start to get a bit more control over the shape. Like so. And we'll just thin down the beak as well. I'm going to turn off the poly paint for this. And there we go, start to shape it a little bit better. It doesn't always take much if you're struggling with a part, and that's the thing, folks. You know, you're going to struggle with parts that you maybe thought, oh, that bit should be fairly straightforward, and it's not. It's not. So I'm just now starting to pull in some of this area at the back of the beak here. So this is essentially just where the mouth's going to open and extend. Just think of it essentially just like your cheek and the mouth area. And then we've got this little overlap under here. Is also forming part of it. And then we can shallow out some of that skin fold. Then we've got the sharp part at the end of the beak here. And then the secondary part that kind of moves up and onto the face. And then we have the fur, which is actually kind of poking in just over the beak here, like so. So there's a bit of an overlap as well. And I'm going to use the pinch brush just to bring that together a bit more. And then just soften that back. The hardest transition that we want is obviously where the beak is. So, you know, where the beak is opening and things. I'm going to take the trim dynamic again and just start reshaping the beak. And we're going to lose some detail, but we can always put that back in. It's not a problem. Just getting that beak shape how it should look. A little bit of pinch. And then soften that back. And then once I've got everything kind of in place the way I want it, now I can step back down the subdivisions and turn off the color again. And we can start refining the shape a bit more, because we're going to, as we add and tweak the shape, you're going to lose a bit of form. So we might have to go back and change the beak shape a bit, just to get the volume that we were missing before. And something like the beak on any kind of bird is something that is a lot more complicated than it might seem at first. So just be very wary when you are creating those shapes that you get them as accurate as you can. Go. Take a little bit more time with the dam standard. Now that we've pinched that together, we can refine that shape a bit more. With a little bit of inflate as well, at a lower subdivision, we can bring those two elements together. And now for the eye, we're just going to do a little bit of reshaping just to get the look that we need. Grab our dam standard, and with an alternate stroke, we can start bringing in a little indication of where that eyelid is. And start in kind of placing in bits that you wouldn't normally see because a lot of the colouring hides it. There we go. And we need to do a bit more cleanup around the eye socket too. Just to even out some of the surfaces. Smooth that back now that we've got a little bit more surface variation in there. Check some of the shaping. And if I want to, what I can do here is I can take my move brush and I can just go in and start to adjust any parts that I think look either a bit lumpy or a little bit out of place, just to, again, keep refining that shape. And this is where a lot of the time will go when you're doing any kind of creature. You're going to end up doing a lot of kind of tweaking and reshaping. So there's a part of the eyes here, looking on the reference, I think the eyes still need to be in a bit more and tilted. So we're going to do that using the T-pose mesh feature. And that's going to allow me to move everything at the same time, like so, without really damaging it. And that way I can look at the reference image, I can move the eyeballs, and I can use and I can move the head all at the same time. So it really looks as though the eyes need to be in much more, like that. And yeah, that's looking good. And we need to taper out, or even taper in this part of the beak. Looks like the beak just needs, we're maybe a little bit thick on the beak. There we go. Make overall proportional changes to the whole creature. There we go. And it looks as though as well with the head, we need to bring down this section here, but also bring it in. There we go. Maybe do a bit of a smooth. And that's a better shape for the head overall. Okay, So we'll go back to T-pose sub-T. And that's better. That's giving us a more accurate rendition of the penguin. And now with these higher meshes, I can now tweak the positioning of the eye lid around the eyeball, maybe pull this in further, and then pull this down. And then just to help the eyeball sit in the socket a little bit more, we're going to make sure that we have symmetry on. And I'm going to subdivide it a couple of times. I'm just going to inflate the front. So that we get that weird shape. Because the thing with birds is their eyes tend to be a bit of a weird shape. They're not fully spherical. They're almost like a half sphere a lot of the time. So something to be aware of. There we go. So one area that is bothering me though is the beak. The beak's still bothering me here, this connection part. I'm gonna use the pinch brush to bring that together. So, and then go down to a really low subdivision and then fix the end. It would take a little bit more work to get that looking okay, but it's worth it. Let me just double check the look of this. I might have went a little bit too far. It looks like I did, so let's undo that. Are we on symmetry? Yes, we are. So I'm actually going to, instead here, I'm going to re-sculpt some of that edge back onto the beak. That's probably a better idea. There we go. Then bring that up, like so. How are we doing on time? All right, folks, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, but I'm going to keep going anyway, because I think we're almost there. We're almost there with this. Do a little bit of a paint job, maybe a little bit of detail, and we'll see if we can get a bit of a pose on as well. And I'm using the roughness of the clay brush as well, just to add a bit of surface variation. I'm not too worried if we can see some strokes. But it's not bad for a couple of hours. Let's just mask off that bit. And then that's better. That's a better shape for the lower beak. What is going on? Why is my smooth not working? Okay. Going to reset the brush. Zbrush has also been fighting with me today. Yes. Or is my keyboard? Oh, my keyboard's working. So the smooth brush is just being difficult. I'm just going to do a quick reset all brushes and see if that fixes. Yes, there we go. That's fixed it. Sometimes when you are working away in ZBrush, you'll accidentally maybe hit something, hit a key here, hit a key there, and you'll end up changing something on a brush that you didn't mean to. So doing a quick reset brushes in the brush menu will fix most problems. Okay. Let's bring back the color here. And we've got quite a lot of subdivisions here. So now we can clean up the brush, the work that we did with the paint. And what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to try something. So we're going to do a save as. And why is that saving there? Okay, so bear with me. Let me just save this in the right place. There we go. I'm going to take the fur brush and I want to see whether or not how this looks if I do a color spray. It's not bad. Let's lower that intensity. That's quite good. We're getting actually a decent coverage there. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take away the sculpting detail that I've done there. We're going to paint and sculpt at the same time here. So for this, I want to make sure that I've got a decent amount of polygons, which I do. I have 1.5 million. I'm going to go to layers and make a new layer. With the alpha brush or the fur brush, I'm going to turn on RGB so that when hang on, let me just make them both white. So now, if I lower the intensity and lower the RGB, we've lost pressure sensitivity. There we go. And now, let's just increase that a bit. So now as I sculpt, I'm actually getting some paint work as well. So while I'm adding detail, I'm also painting an interesting texture. So we're going to work this down the body like so. Following it again, they've got very, very short, very, very tight fur. It's very coarse, or that's at least how it looks. And you can see here that as I work this into the areas, as it's the transition between the darker and the lighter feathers, it starts to look really natural. And it's a really fast way to get something looking pretty decent. Like so. We'll do the same along the wing. Then a bit more up into the face. Let me see here. What other colorings? Where's my main reference image? There he is. There he is. So we'll do something like that. And then for the, actually we've got it around the eye, so let's do that around the eye too. And that's going to break up how that fur looks too. Now the fur here is going to go in the same direction, so we're going to do something along these lines. And this is just the first pass, obviously, of the fur. We're going to go over to the darker color now, but I'm also going to, I've noticed there's a little bit more, there's a bit of blue as well. So I want to take a more of a bit of a grey blue and interject that into the color. So let's do the same now. There we go. Just small strokes, building it up, not going too heavy. Again, this is what I was meaning. You take your time. And as I've said many times before, folks, things like details like this, these should just be the polish. If I hadn't spent all the time putting together the form, this wouldn't be working as well. Okay. Bring that down to the tail, which I'll deal with in a second, because we're going to have to add a little bit more detail to that. And there we go. That's the body. That's looking acceptable to me for a first pass. We'll go around the rest of the head now. Just maybe make the brush a bit smaller, just to pull in some more of this detail. There we go. Be careful how I apply it around the nose, around the beak even. Okay. Now, that's not bad. Now what I want to do is I want to turn off Ziad, and now I'm going to just go in and clean up any areas and add a bit more asymmetry to it. So I'm now just going to go in, a light brush, and start spraying that over different areas, like so. And start breaking it up. Next, we'll go back over to the paintbrush, grab a, let me see, let's do drag dot. Let's see how this looks. No, that's not great. We'll do this one instead. How's that? That's better. So if we now take this here, I can actually switch this to spray as well. And start pulling that into the shape as well. There we go. Darken it up a bit. Just to add that variation now into the feather. And I'm being very light with the coverage here so that it does give that kind of mottled kind of look. And that transition. Interesting. There we go. Okay. So let's just grab the white now and do a little bit more on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take record off and do a bake all. And now I'm just going to go over this again, but with the layer turned off, and that's going to help get rid of any kind of weird or harsh transitions, which can sometimes be brought in by the layer system in Zbrush, which is not the greatest for painting. It's pretty awful, actually, if I'm being honest. And it's generally why when I'm doing layers, or sorry, when I'm doing painting in Zbrush, I will not do it on a layer. Darken that down a bit more. Go down to the feet, and we're going to do a little bit of surface detail here. So we're going to go to the feet, turn on noise, frame it up. I'm going to take the color blend down to 0. I don't want any of that. And I'm just going to increase the scale here, maybe make a little bit of an adjustment on the curve, up the strength a bit, and maybe a bit more of a change. You know what? I'm going to reset that. Reset it again. Oh, that's enough. We don't need any more than that, I don't think. So I'm going to grab the noise here, copy it, hit OK, go to the other foot, and then paste the noise, and then hit OK. Excellent. Okay, let's take another little look at the beak now. So we'll go to the paint options. We're going to change to dots, and we're going to take alpha 1, and I'm just going to paint in a darker color along the beak. Make symmetry is on. A little bit along the beak there, a bit of variation, a little bit of black under there for the tip of the bottom of the beak. We'll go to the orange. We'll now start bringing in the rest of the beak and just clean that edge up. A bit of a deeper orange. Just frame the area that we have. Okay, so I think the penguin is more or less done now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to check this foot and see if I have subdivisions on that. So that's great. I'm going to merge these down, make sure that they're both at their highest. That's perfect. So now I can merge these together, merge down, okay. I'll need to reapply the noise, but that's not a big deal. This time I might actually just increase the strength quite a bit and then hit apply to mesh. There we go. And by doing that, I give myself a nice little bit of variation. And what happened to the other dew claw? I didn't see that. Okay, made a bit of a mistake there. Let's just duplicate the foot. Delete hidden. Okay, it's being difficult. So what I'm going to do with this duplicate is I'm just going to delete the lower subdivs and do that, and then do a quick mirror. Perfect. And then we're going to go to these, and I'm just going to delete that one there. There we go. So now with that dew claw, I can set that to another subdivision and then merge everything back down. Perfect. And then this is the eyes. So let's rename those. Eyes, feet, and body. So we have a little penguin. Although we need to do a little bit of fixing to the white on his wings. I actually have another, they've got a bit of extra color in their wings, some of them, which is kind of cool. So let's maybe finish the painting with a bit of that. The Zbrush will behave. We'll go to the paint. We'll go to, let's choose Alpha 8 again. And I'm going to do backface mask. Grab the white and just start bringing that back into the wing. Like so. And then I've also noticed that there's actually a bit of orange. So we're going to pull orange from the beak, desaturate it a little bit, lower the intensity, and just start implementing some of that into the wing. And then we'll take a bit of an off yellow and start interspersing that throughout the yellow. I went to do the school run, came back, and there's a penguin. Well, that's the plan. I'm glad that was a plan. And if you'd come back and it went all wrong, oof. King Arthur Art. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. So, get a bit of extra yellow in there just to kind of make it a bit more realistic and blend it together. There we go. All right. So the last thing we want to do is we'll give him a little pose. We don't have to do much, I don't think. Oh, the tail. Sorry, I forgot about the tail. So for the tail, I'm going to go into the move brush here, go to AccuCurve, and I'm just going to be really, really, really cheeky and just, if symmetry will turn off, thank you. There we go. I'm just going to be really cheeky and just pull out some strands from the tail. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to look a little bit better than what we had. There we go. So let's go for a little, let's give him a little base to actually sit on now. So let's append a polyplane. And actually, you know what? Let's not do a polyplane because that's going to give us a bit of a headache. We're going to take his original base, shrink it, and make a new one. So we're going to make a new base. Nice and big. And then part of me wants to turn it into an iceberg, but I'll maybe do that later off stream. I'm going to take this, subdivide it down, delete the lower, and then all I'm going to do is go into my light box, and I have a couple of brushes that I use for environments. So if I go into my brushes, environment, and let me see, I've got these great, I can never remember the name of these. These ones? No, let's just go up. Oh, here we go. So I have these great brushes from J-Ron. That's all I know the artist by. So if you check these out, you might be able to find some really cool damage and rock and stuff. So it's quite helpful for me to just be able to quickly put a rocky base for him. I can just drag that out, subdivide it, drag it out. And we might even be able to take some of these other ones and put them along the side. Yeah, so there we go. So now we can maybe mask the top off of this. So see, this is the thing that happens, folks. I always think, right, we'll do a quick base. And then I start doing things and go, wait, we can showcase how to do something. So we end up spending a bit more time than we probably should. So we do that, and then I'm going to drag out this rock edge. Okay. And then we can build up a little bit more damage on the actual rock feature itself. Maybe come in with the knife curve and start chopping parts off. No, I don't like that. I'm going to stick with this, make it nice and simple. I'm not going to move him, I'm going to move the rock, at least for the time being, and then we'll pose him. Let's now add, let's add our plane. And that's going to be, fill that with 100% blue. And then we'll take this and do white for the, or a lighter blue for the rock. And then I'm going to take my masking, do a quick mask by cavity, invert it, and then just add a bit of a deeper blue in there. Then grab the light blue with the RGB intensity set to a lower value. I can now just fill that object over like so, and it creates a little bit of variance without distracting from our guy. Now I'm going to save the scene. And what we'll do is we'll hide the plane for the water, and we're going to go into T-pose mesh. And now we're going to actually start posing our character using the transpose master. Now I don't have much in the way of great, well, there's some great poses, but I just want a nice kind of subtle one. So what I'm going to do here is if I hit Control F, it gives me my polygroups. And the most important area that we want to work on is, at the moment, is the legs here. So let me just get the right selection here. There we go. Is the image I've got that I want to reference, he's got his little feet kind of just turned in on themselves, which is kind of cool. I'm going to use a transpose line instead of the gizmo here and just soften the mask. Just rotate his foot in like so. And then I'm going to do the same with the next one. Oops. Invert that, soften it, get the transpose line, and just make sure that the transpose line is where you would imagine the center of the overall leg would be, like the ankle, and do something like that. And then we get to do probably the trickiest bit, which is going to be bringing the wings in. So I'm going to do this symmetrically if I can. That's adorable. Thank you, Holly. So we'll invert that. We're going to drag out our transpose line, like so. And now I'm going to just rotate them down, like so. Oops, hate it when I do that. Because now I have to start again. The only downside to the transpose, you have to constantly redraw it. But it is quite useful. I'm just going to do another rotation here. And no, I'm going to redo those. I don't think they worked the way I wanted. So this time I'm going to try using the gizmo. Maybe the gizmo will give me a bit more control. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. I'm going to go back to transpose. That is not what I wanted to happen. So we're going to be a bit sharper there. Sam Media. Hey, Sam Media, how are you? Thank you for coming along. That might be a bit better. That looks a bit better. So we'll just have to constantly move these out as we rotate them. Constantly change this, just making sure that we get this in the right place. Wish I had more time to watch your streams. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, unfortunately, it's just, the thing is, Sam, we have lots of streamers on at lots of times, lots of different times of the day. So, you know, just depending on, you know, how you're situated, you might be able to catch some of them. For example, we have Andre. He's going to be doing some cool ZBrush and chill stuff tomorrow, around about 6 a.m. UTC. So 7 o'clock UK time, depending on where you're based. So I'm going to invert this and then just start reposing some of this. This is one of the downsides of transpose, is that you will have to go in and resculpt a little bit to get the pose the way you want it. Thankfully, a lot of this is just going to be form stuff. There we go. That's looking okay. And then let's get interesting. Where is the eye? The eye must be inside the head. I hope so. Otherwise, I'm going to have to redo the eyes. So let's bring back, oh no, there's the eyes there. Right, okay, that's cool. So let's now do the head. So we're going to do a bit of this, soften that off quite a lot. Again, use the transpose master and just rotate its head if we get that in the right place, around about there. And then we can rotate the head like that. And then Clean it up a little bit. And do something a bit more custom. Again, we'll rotate, move that whole thing up. And I will change the shape of the neck. Just soften off some of these shapes here. Again, re-sculpting as required. And then the last thing we need to do is, you know what, we're going to cheat a wee bit here again, folks. We're going to change the shape of the rock to fit his feet rather than the other way around. So we'll just put our move brush and we'll just change the rock a bit. Now we'll hit T-pose sub-T, and hopefully, all being well, nothing will break. I'm based in the land of smiles. I don't know where that could be. I mean, it depends. That could mean that you're in Denmark. It's normally considered one of the happiest places to be. Okay, now that that's in place, we want to add a little bit more to the base here, make it vary it a little bit. Let's subdivide it one more time. Thailand. Cool. I'm going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to turn on RGB here so that if I switch my color here, I can create, if I want, some colored rocks, but it's not really looking the way I want. So let's see what else we have. What about you? Let's see, RGB. It's not really what I want. Let's maybe darken this up. Maybe this will make it look better. No. So let's do that. No. Okay. So instead, we will use a bit of paint and add a bit more color onto that. Cool idea having it. Yes, yeah, I much prefer having everything up to the right if I can on my UI. If you the thing is, if you will find that working in ZBrush becomes infinitely easier if you have a UI that you know like the back of your hand. You know what? I'm going to just do a little bit more to this guy. It's a huge mess, but I know where everything is. Well, then that's fine. If it works for you, it works for you. One of the things I wanted to fix here, folks, was I'm not a huge fan of. I think I want to kind of sit him down a bit more on his legs. I'm just going to soften that a bit. Grab my gizmo tool and just. Oh. Again, another downside of using Transpose Master. It's really powerful, but it does mean having to really think about your masks. Where can I see your last projects? You will be able, if you go to the Firestorm YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch all the past streams from myself and other artists on the team. It depends which project if you know which project you're talking about, I can maybe point you in the right direction of a video as well. So there we go. Let's just add a bit of weight to this wee guy. A bit of extra gravity to him. Don't have anything on ArtStation or in Discord. The Discord, there is a work in progress thread for the A to Z series, but nothing from myself. But you can go to my ArtStation as well. Although I don't have much on my ArtStation, really. Okay. All right, folks. We're now at 2.5 hours. I think it's time that we called this done. All this fella is missing is a jetpack remote and propeller hat. Kind of like a raccoon. Ah, I think you're talking about the Bearcat, Sam Media. A few months ago, yes, the Bearcat was our second. We didn't get that far with it, but the Bearcat was definitely a lot of fun to work on. All right, folks. So we're going to quickly give him a little bit of a rim light, because why not? Let's give him a little rim light. Oops, that's not the one I wanted. It's that one. Zbrush is, there we go. A little bit of a rim light or not, and we'll make that rim light blue. And then we'll do our normal one. There we go. Get that eye shine in there. There we go, folks. So we have our penguin done in 2.5 hours. So not bad. Not bad. It looks okay. Could probably change the material on him, right? Maybe needs to be a bit shinier. So we could maybe switch him over to. No, we don't want to do that, do we? Let's see what happens if we do. No, we don't want that. That's too bad. Unless we can change the. Let's do a little bit of a spec adjustment here. Not bad. We're going to be doing a marmoset render, or I'll be doing a marmoset render of this little guy anyway. So he will look a little bit better, hopefully, when he's got some proper lighting on him as well. I would take us over to Marmoset to set them up, but the performance of Marmoset and the stream tends to tank, mainly due to just how hungry the Marmoset toolbag is for the GPU. Okay, so there we go, folks. See, I'm really tempted to do other little things to this material now because I can increase the ambient a bit. There we go, make him a bit brighter. And we'll just do save next. All right, folks. So I want to thank you all for coming along and hanging out with me today while we worked through our penguin. So next week, as I said, we will be streaming from Monday, or I'll be streaming from Monday again. And we'll be doing a Quetzalcoatlus. So we're doing a dinosaur. No, actually, that's not fair. I'm not being accurate there. That's not a dinosaur. It's a pterosaur. So we'll be working on that next week. And I think that's going to be Monday and Friday. I have a feeling we might need 2 sessions for that one. But you never know. You never know. So yes, folks. And here to do, I'm just going to do the marketing bit now. If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about what Firestorm Studios has to offer and what it can do for you, then please make sure to check out the social media links at the bottom of this page. And please come along and join our Discord as well. You'll be able to speak to other members of the team and also just join in a fantastic community that is there for beginner artists, new artists, and people just wanting to learn. So please do make sure to come over, say hello, and join in. All right, folks. And with that in mind, yes, no, my pleasure, folks. I appreciate everybody coming along. So yes, I will be back again next week, same pat time, same Firestorm channel. And until then, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.